Lily Adams had always been the kind of person who made everyone around her feel at ease. At 28, she had a warmth that drew people in, a quality that was especially appreciated in her job as an orderly at a bustling hospital in Seattle. Raised by her grandmother, Grace, Lily had learned the importance of kindness and empathy from an early age. Her bright smile and gentle nature were a stark contrast to the often harsh realities of the hospital environment. One crisp autumn morning, as Lily was going about her duties, she noticed something unusual. A sleek, gray cat with piercing green eyes sat just outside the hospital entrance. The cat seemed out of place, watching the comings and goings with an intensity that caught Lily's attention. Every day, as she passed by on her way to different wards, the cat was there, always in the same spot. Curiosity piqued. Lily mentioned the cat to Sam, the elderly janitor who had worked at the hospital for as long as anyone could remember. Sam, with his weathered face and kind eyes, was something of a fixture himself. He chuckled softly when Lily asked about the cat. "Ah, that's Whiskers," Sam said, his voice carrying a hint of sadness. "Belongs to an old man who used to come by the hospital every week. He's in the ICU now, had a bad accident. Poor Whiskers has been waiting here every day since. I've been letting him stay in the storage shed to keep him safe, but he won't budge from that spot for long." Lily's heart went out to the lonely cat. She knew what it felt like to be alone, to rely on someone deeply. Grace had been her rock, especially after her parents passed away when she was young. The bond between Whiskers and his owner reminded Lily of her own relationship with her grandmother. As the days passed, Lily made it a point to visit Whiskers during her breaks. She'd bring him scraps of food or simply sit with him, offering a gentle word or a soft pat. The connection between them grew, and soon Whiskers began to recognize her, his green eyes lighting up whenever she approached. Meanwhile, the hospital bustled with activity, and Lily's workload never seemed to lighten. Nina Evans, a nurse in her early 40s, often found herself crossing paths with Lily. Unlike Lily, Nina was known for her strict demeanor, a woman who rarely smiled and seemed to harbor a simmering resentment towards the younger woman. Nina had been at the hospital for years and had a reputation for being demanding and difficult to please. To her, Lily's natural warmth and easy rapport with patients were a constant source of irritation. One day, as Lily was chatting with Whiskers, Nina walked by and shot her a disapproving look. "You spend more time with that cat than doing your job, Lily?" Nina snapped, her tone dripping with disdain. Lily, taken aback, straightened up and tried to explain. "I just feel bad for him, Nina. He's all alone, waiting for his owner to get better." "Well, we're not here to coddle animals," Nina retorted sharply before walking away, her expression hard. Lily sighed, feeling the weight of Nina's disapproval, but she couldn't bring herself to ignore Whiskers. The cat's loyalty to his owner touched something deep within her, and she knew she couldn't just walk away. It was around this time that Lily met Edward Bennett, a patient at the hospital who was in his early 70s. Edward was the owner of a successful construction firm, and despite his wealth, he was a man of simple tastes. His salt and pepper hair and kind, yet weary, blue eyes spoke of a life filled with both success and sorrow. He was recovering from a surgery that had taken a toll on his once robust health. Lily was assigned to care for Edward during his stay, and it wasn't long before they struck up a friendship. Edward, who had grown disillusioned with his stepson Lucas's irresponsible behavior and his wife Catherine's cold demeanor, found solace in Lily's genuine kindness. They would talk during her shifts, and Edward quickly became fond of her. One day, as Lily was tending to Edward's room, he brought up a topic that had been weighing on his mind. "Lily, you remind me so much of someone I used to know," Edward began, his voice tinged with nostalgia. "There's a warmth in you that's hard to find these days." Lily blushed at the compliment. "Thank you, Mr. Bennett. I just try to treat everyone the way I'd want to be treated." Edward nodded thoughtfully. "You know, Lily, I've been thinking a lot lately. My family, well, let's just say they're not the easiest people to deal with. But you're different. You're genuine." Lily wasn't sure where this conversation was headed, but she listened intently. There was something in Edward's tone that made her think he had something important to say, something that would change her life in ways she couldn't yet imagine. As she left his room that day, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Edward Bennett's story than met the eye. And as the mysterious whiskers continued to wait faithfully for his owner, Lily's life was about to take a turn she never saw coming. The suspense was building, and Lily had no idea just how much her life was about to change. Over the next few weeks, Lily Adams and Edward Bennett continued to grow closer. Their conversations often drifted from the mundane to the deeply personal, with Edward revealing bits and pieces of his complicated life. He spoke of his construction firm, a company he had built from the ground up, and how he was increasingly disillusioned with the people closest to him, his wife Catherine and his stepson Lucas. One afternoon, while Lily was changing the linens on Edward's bed, he suddenly asked, "Lily, have you ever thought about what you'd do with a large sum of money? Something like $20 million. The question caught Lily off guard, and she paused, the fresh sheets still in her hands. $20 million? She repeated, half laughing. I can't even imagine what that would be like. Why do you ask? Edward looked at her intently, his blue eyes searching her face. I've been thinking a lot about my legacy, Lily. I'm not getting any younger, and I've been wondering if the people I leave everything to will appreciate it, or just squander it. Lily didn't know what to say. She could sense that Edward was leading up to something, but she wasn't sure what. I'm sure your family cares about you, Mr. Bennett, she offered cautiously. Edward sighed deeply. I wish that were true. My wife, Catherine, well, let's just say she's more interested in what my money can do for her lifestyle than in me. And Lucas, he's my stepson, but he's never shown much responsibility. He's reckless, entitled. I've bailed him out more times than I can count. Lily nodded, unsure of where this was heading. She felt a pang of sympathy for Edward. It was clear that he was a man who had given much but received little in return. Edward seemed to make a decision at that moment. Lily, I need your help, he said, his voice firm. There's an important business event coming up, and I need someone to pose as my daughter. Lily blinked in surprise. Your daughter? But why me? Because you're the only person I trust right now, Edward explained. This event is crucial for a deal I'm working on. My business partners value family connections, and I don't have anyone reliable to represent me. Lucas is out of the question, and Catherine, well, she's only interested in how she looks in front of others. I need someone who's genuine, someone who can help me present the image I need. Lily felt a swirl of emotions. Honor, confusion, and a bit of fear. I don't know, Mr. Bennett, she said slowly. I wouldn't know the first thing about pretending to be someone I'm not, especially at such an important event. Edward reached out and placed a reassuring hand on her arm. You don't have to worry about a thing. I'll take care of everything, the wardrobe, the details. All I need is your presence and your kindness. I'll make sure you're compensated, of course. Lily hesitated, the enormity of what he was asking sinking in. It wasn't just the money, though the idea of being paid to attend a fancy event was tempting. It was the trust Edward was placing in her. I'll think about it, she finally said, giving him a tentative smile. As Lily left Edward's room, she couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and anxiety. What he was proposing was unlike anything she'd ever been involved in, and part of her was scared to get in over her head. Meanwhile, across town at Edward's luxurious estate, Catherine Bennett was growing increasingly suspicious. She had noticed a change in Edward recently. He was more withdrawn, more secretive, and worst of all, he seemed to be spending less time worrying about her and more time with that young orderly at the hospital. Catherine's mind, always sharp and calculating, began to work overtime. She knew Edward's wealth was vast, and she had no intention of losing her grip on it. The $20 million inheritance was hers and Lucas's ticket to a life of luxury, and she wasn't about to let anyone come between them and that fortune. That evening, Catherine called Lucas into the grand parlor, where she was sipping a glass of expensive red wine. Lucas, who had just returned from another late-night outing, slouched into a chair across from her. We need to talk, Catherine began, her voice steely. Your stepfather is up to something, And it involves that girl at the hospital. Lucas rolled his eyes. What's he doing now? Planning to give her a few bucks to keep her quiet. Catherine narrowed her eyes. He's planning something much bigger than that. I don't know all the details yet, but I intend to find out. And when I do, we need to be ready to act. We can't let him change his will or give away what's rightfully ours. Lucas, suddenly more interested, leaned forward. What do you want me to do? Keep a close eye on him, Catherine instructed. And more importantly, keep that girl away from him. We can't afford any slip-ups. The $20 million is ours, Lucas, and we're not letting anyone take it from us. As the night grew darker, the tension in the Bennett household thickened. Little did Lily know that her decision, whether to help Edward or not, would soon thrust her into the middle of a dangerous game of loyalty, betrayal, and greed. Lily spent several sleepless nights thinking about Edward's proposal. The idea of posing as his daughter for an important business event was daunting, but she couldn't deny the trust Edward had placed in her. Ultimately, it wasn't the promise of compensation that swayed her, but the genuine connection she felt with Edward. He was lonely, and his family had clearly let him down. If she could help him, even in this unusual way, she decided it was worth the risk. The following day, she found herself back in Edward's room, where he was anxiously awaiting her decision. "Mr. Bennett," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I'll do it. I'll help you at the event." Edward's face lit up with relief and gratitude. "Thank you, Lily. You have no idea how much this means to me." True to his word, Edward took care of everything. He arranged for a personal stylist to help Lily prepare for the event, providing her with a beautiful dress, elegant jewelry, and even a session at an upscale salon. For someone who had spent most of her life in scrubs and practical clothes, the transformation was overwhelming, but Lily couldn't deny that she felt a sense of excitement as well. On the evening of the event, Edward's driver arrived to pick Lily up from her modest apartment. Grace, her grandmother, watched with pride as her granddaughter, looking like a vision of grace and poise, stepped into the luxurious car. "Remember who you are, Lily?" Grace called out as the car pulled away. "Be true to yourself." Lily nodded, holding those words close to her heart as she was whisked away to the grand venue where the event was being held. The venue, a lavish ballroom in downtown Seattle, was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and the soft murmur of conversation filled the air as Seattle's elite mingled and networked. Edward was waiting for her near the entrance. When he saw her, he smiled warmly. "Lily, you look stunning. I knew you'd fit right in." "Thank you, Mr. Bennett," Lily replied, still feeling a bit out of place but reassured by Edward's confidence in her. As the evening progressed, Lily found herself growing more comfortable. Edward introduced her to his business partners as his daughter, and she played the role with a natural ease that surprised even her. The partners seemed to take a liking to her, charmed by her sincerity and genuine interest in their conversations. But as the night wore on, Lily began to notice something strange. Lucas had shown up at the event, despite Edward's clear instructions that he wasn't to attend. He lurked on the edges of the room, his eyes never straying far from Lily and Edward. There was something unsettling about his presence, a predatory gleam in his eyes that made Lily uneasy. As Lily and Edward mingled, Lucas took his chance. He intercepted Lily as she was heading to the refreshment table, his expression twisted into a mocking grin. "Well, if it isn't Daddy's little princess," he sneered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Enjoying your big night out?" Lily stiffened, taken aback by his hostility. "I'm just here to help Mr. Bennett," she replied calmly, trying to keep her composure. "Help him?" Lucas scoffed. "You're just a pawn in his little game, you know. Do you really think he cares about you? He's just using you to make himself look good. And when he's done, you'll be tossed aside like the rest of us." His words stung, but Lily refused to let him see how much they affected her. "I'm not here for the money or the status, Lucas. I'm here because I care about him, something you clearly don't understand." Lucas's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Lily thought he might lash out. But instead, he leaned in closer, his voice low and threatening. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. But don't worry, it's all going to come crashing down soon enough. Before Lily could respond, Lucas turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Her heart pounded in her chest as she tried to make sense of his cryptic warning. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The evening continued, but Lily's unease grew with every passing moment. Edward, sensing her discomfort, asked if she was all right, but she brushed it off, not wanting to worry him. As the event neared its conclusion, the room's atmosphere shifted. There was a subtle tension in the air, a sense that something was about to happen. Lily caught sight of Catherine, who had arrived late, standing off to the side, watching her with a cold, calculating gaze. It was clear that Catherine was plotting something, but Lily couldn't quite figure out what. Then, just as the night seemed to be winding down, Lucas reappeared, microphone in hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice booming through the speakers, "I have a little surprise for all of you." Lily's blood ran cold as she realized that Lucas was about to make good on his threat. The crowd fell silent, all eyes turning to him as he began to speak. "Lily Adams here," he said, pointing directly at her, "isn't who she says she is. She's no daughter of Edward Bennett. She's a fraud, a gold digger who's been using my stepfather for her own gain." The room erupted in whispers and gasps. Lily felt the color drain from her face as she stood frozen in place, the weight of Lucas's accusations crashing down on her. She looked over at Edward, who was staring at Lucas in shock, clearly blindsided by his stepson's betrayal. But before Lucas could continue his tirade, Olivia, Edward's loyal assistant, stepped forward. "That's enough, Lucas," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the chaos. "You're the one who's been trying to manipulate your stepfather, and we all know it." The crowd hushed again, the tension thick in the air. Lucas looked stunned for a moment, but then his expression hardened. "You're all fools," he spat before storming out of the room, leaving a trail of stunned silence in his wake. Lily was shaken, but Olivia's intervention had given her the strength to stand tall. Edward moved to her side, his expression one of unwavering support. "Don't worry, Lily," he whispered. "We'll get through this together." Despite the chaos, the bond between Edward and Lily had only grown stronger. But Lily knew this was far from over. Catherine and Lucas were still out there, and their desire for the $20 million inheritance would drive them to even more desperate measures. As the night ended, Lily couldn't help but wonder what would come next. But she was determined to see it through, no matter the cost. In the days following the disastrous event, tension hung heavy over Edward Bennett's life. The public accusation by Lucas had stirred up a storm, not just within Edward's personal circles but also in the business community. However, Edward stood firm, determined to protect Lily and confront the growing threat from his wife and stepson. Lily, though shaken by the incident, found solace in Edward's unwavering support. She spent more time at the hospital, focusing on her work and trying to keep her mind off the turmoil. But the sense of impending danger never truly left her. One afternoon, as Lily was finishing her shift, Olivia approached her with a grave expression. "Lily, there's something you need to know. Catherine and Lucas aren't done. They've been making moves, trying to pressure Edward into changing his will." Lily's heart sank. "What are they planning?" "I don't know all the details," Olivia admitted, "but I do know that they're desperate. They want that $20 million inheritance, and they'll do whatever it takes to get it." Fear gnawed at Lily, but she knew she couldn't abandon Edward now. "We have to stop them," she said, her voice firm. That evening, Lily went to Edward's estate, determined to warn him. As she arrived, she found Edward in his study, looking weary but resolute. "Edward, they're coming after you," she said, not bothering with pleasantries. "You have to protect yourself." Edward nodded, his eyes heavy with the burden of the situation. "I know, Lily. I've already taken precautions. The will is finalized, and it names you as my heir. But there's something more I need to do." "What is it?" Lily asked, her heart pounding. "I'm divorcing Catherine," Edward said quietly. She's shown her true colors, and I can't allow her or Lucas to have any claim over my estate. It's time to cut ties. Before Lily could respond, the door to the study burst open. Catherine stormed in, her face twisted with rage. Lucas was right behind her, looking equally furious. You think you can just cut us out like this? Catherine spat, her voice dripping with venom. We're your family, Edward. You were never my family, Edward replied, his voice calm but firm. You were only ever after my money. But it ends now. Lucas lunged forward, but Edward stepped back, keeping a safe distance. It's over, Lucas. You've lost. The inheritance isn't yours, and neither is my trust. Catherine's face twisted into a sneer. You'll regret this, Edward. You'll die alone, and no one will care. Lily, standing by Edward's side, finally spoke up. You're wrong, Catherine. Edward has people who care about him. People who love him for who he is, not for his money. With that, Catherine and Lucas realized their fight was futile. Defeated, they stormed out of the study, leaving Edward and Lily standing together in the quiet aftermath. In the following weeks, the divorce was finalized, and Lucas was cut off completely. Edward's health improved, and he slowly began to rebuild his life, free from the toxic influence of his former family. One sunny afternoon, Edward made a decision that would change Lily's life forever. As they sat in his garden, enjoying the warmth of the day, he turned to her with a smile. Lily, you've become the daughter I never had. I'd like to make it official, if you'll let me. Tears welled up in Lily's eyes as she nodded. Yes, Edward. I'd be honored. Together, they formed a new family, one built on trust, loyalty, and love. With Grace and Irene by their side, and even Whiskers contentedly lounging nearby, they found a peace that had eluded them for so long. The $20 million inheritance was no longer a source of tension but a symbol of the new life they had all built together. In the end, it wasn't the money that mattered, but the bonds they had forged along the way.